Okay, we're live. Hi, everybody. Thank you for bearing with us. We had a little bit of technical difficulties, but we're here. So thank you for being here. And I'm Deann, Shield Maiden Tarot. And today I have with me Mel Doerr, the Aloha shirt psychic, who has his Aloha shirt on as usual. And I have on with me Hogarth from Global Astrology. Hogarth, Global Astrology. He's a Vedic astrologer. And he's amazing. And I just wanted, and now it's 10 o'clock your time right now, isn't it? Past 10 o'clock?
10 p.m.
Yeah, here. Just past 10 p.m. Yeah,
so you're in night owl.
That's 22. Yes. That's 2200.
Yes. Yeah. 2207. 2207. But thanks for having me on, Deann. And Mel, it's so nice that we get to collab at last. I was saying off screen, folks, I've been admiring Mel from afar, and at last we're having our collaboration. So thanks so much.
Last you get to meet crazy ass Mel, huh?
Oh, we love you, Mel. The crazy is just a benefit, added benefit. Normal is overrated.
Indeed.
Well, I wanted to tell everybody, thank you for being here. Thank you, Bora Bora, Peekaboo, Jane, JC, everybody, Nancy. I want to say to you guys, if you don't know me, I am not very good at typing in the chat. So if I don't get to say hello to you, I see you and thank you for being here. I wanted to say...
I'll type hellos in the chat. How's that?
Oh, you will. Thank you. Thank you. I have a little tiny desk, and here's my keyboard over here on the bed. It's a touch screen, so it's just a little hard for me to do. So thank you. But I was wanting to let you guys know I have Hogarth here because he has written a book on Vedic astrology, and I got to read a little bit of it late last night. Hogarth, just a little bit. I read it out loud to my husband and was reading with him, and I hadn't slept for a little while, so a little bit of it, I might not have got, but I'm going to read it because it looks very, very interesting. And I took some notes and on some of the things that I was, we lost him. Hold on, guys. He'll be back. But anyway, Hogarth, he'll be back, but he's written a book on Vedic astrology, and it's very interesting. And he's been working very, very hard at this. So when he gets back, I have a few notes. But in the meantime, while I'm waiting, Mel, while we're waiting for Hogarth to come back, did you want to, that'd be a good time to give some announcements while we're waiting. Did you want to?
Somebody in the chat said, wait. Misa Matsumori said, Mel, you're behaving yourself. And I answered back in the chat, give me a few seconds and I won't be.
I know. Behaving yourself is so hard.
We have an event in September at the end of the month. And if you're interested in joining us, www.meldoerr, MELDOERR.com. There's a flyer on my website. Deanna's going to be with us. We've got Kevin Lewis, Kevin Chandler, Linda Grindle, me, Kim Copeland, Psychic Arthur's going to MC. We've got a whole YouTube cast, and I'm so excited. And I also got a brand new cruise coming May 17th of next year. It's going to go to the French Riviera and the Italian Riviera. It's going to be so cool. It's a luxury yacht, 238 people, and every cabin has its own butler, and every cabin has its own balcony. So it's a little expensive.
Wow.
But it's going to be
but that would be worth it to be able to go there and have your own balcony and your own cabin
and your own butler. Every cabin has its own butler.
What? You got your own butler too? Oh my gosh. Yes, I'm going to have to go to that.
And the yacht has, we're not going to do psychic stuff on it. It's for fun, but the yacht has a helicopter, that you can kind of take tours. It's got a submarine. It's going to be cool. The yacht is called the Scenic Eclipse. So.
Oh, really? And when did you say it's going to be again?
It'll be in May of next year. It's limited. I can only take X amount of people. So it's very limited.
Okay.
And then in 2025, I've also got a trip going to Peru. So there you go.
I'm back.
And Hogarth is back. Hey. And your
Do you know what? I'm here on my phone. I just don't know what it is now, but no matter which laptop I use or whatever, we were just saying off stage, weren't we? There are certain times, folks, when we're doing these lives and stuff, and things just mess up because a lot of people are literally on the internet now. And I think also as well, there's things with solar flares and all that kind of stuff. It seems only my phone can handle stuff now. So sorry about that. I'm now back. Forgive me. What did you ask me? We were talking about the book.
Yes. This book, I was reading it. I was reading it last night. Now I did this on little sleep, so I have some questions, and so if I stumble over my words, I was writing this in bed last night. But okay, so I started reading your book, and this book was dedicated to your mom, who you said, without her vision, teaching, and her struggles, you could not have been the man or astrologer that you are today. And you also mentioned that you weren't allowed to watch TV, but you read a lot of books, and became interested in astrology because a lot of the Greek mythology gods you read about were planets. So tell me a little bit about how your mother inspired you to write this book, and about how you got into the Greek mythology, and that became so important at such a young age. For 8 years old. I know it's a lot to just a little bit.
I mean, that's a great question. And Mel, I hope you've had a chance to have a bit of a chat and stuff before I give my answer, because I don't want to feel like I'm hogging everything. So did you get a chance to have a chin wag before I replied to Deann?
I'm sorry, say again.
I was just saying, did you have a chance to have a chat with Deann before I give my answer? I don't want to feel like I'm hogging everything.
No, go ahead. Is your mom still alive?
No. She passed away in the year 2000.
Let me ask you a question. Did she like birds? Because she's showing me all these birds flying around her, and I take that to mean freedom, and I can smell some kind of cologne or perfume she's got on, and she's all around you. And she guided your hand in writing this, and she wants you to know, obviously, she loves you, and she's very proud of you.
I forget that you're a psychic and you can see this stuff. I wasn't expecting that at all. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I do feel that
she had quite the struggle coming up, right? Because she's telling me about the struggles, and she said that, well, not watching TV, but you know, that she didn't want you to have those same struggles, obviously. But she got past them, yeah. And on the other side, she's just working for equality and helping people and all of the above. And she wants you to do that too.
Fabulous. Thank you. I'm quite touched, actually. I wasn't expecting that at all. My mum was an extraordinary character. I mean, like, truly extraordinary character. And this is probably why I have a little bit of a soft spot for eccentric characters. But she did, while she was here on Earth School, she did suffer a lot with her mental health. She suffered from paranoid schizophrenia, and it wasn't subtle. I mean, it was very, very obvious. And when you're a little kid and your primary caregiver, you know, is struggling with something like that, and of course there were so much taboos. I mean, I grew up in the 80s. If we think of how much more people talk about mental health now in comparison to even when I was a kid. I mean, now you've got apps for it. You know, there's an app for everything, isn't it? I can't remember what it's called now, but you see the adverts come up on YouTube. And I've got a Caribbean background. Both of my parents were originally from Jamaica. I was born in the UK. And but yeah, there was, particularly at that time, I mean, I would say even to an extent now, but there was a huge taboo around mental health and stuff like that. So effectively, my mother was sort of like abandoned as well. So she had us growing up, and I was the youngest of four. And my brother's he's actually written an autobiography that was actually published by a publisher. That's how extraordinary the story is. But she taught me how to read. So my mother taught me how to read. I learned to read on Jack and the Beanstalk. And because she wasn't well, like, her expectations of me as a kid were a bit more than the average. So I was never kind of talking down to or pampered in kind of way. I was always encouraged to stand up and defend myself. And she was a real firebrand. But because of her struggles, that got me very curious about the invisible world. Because when your parent is talking to people that are not there, like having full-blown arguments with the wall or the sofa or, or the television, whatever it is, that makes you question reality. And although I didn't have TV growing up, like I said, there were lots of books. And one of the things I mentioned in the book is that my mum used to have this big chest of books. And there were probably books I shouldn't have seen as a kid. One of them was Count Dracula, some other bits and bobs. But
I love that. It was one of my favorite books of all time. Bram Stoker. Dracula. It was just.
I love vampire books and movies.
But you know what? My mother used to have that book, and she had the Bram Stoker's Dracula, and on the front cover was, do you remember Christopher Lee, the actor?
Yes, he was with the Hammer Studios, and he played in the Horror of Dracula. I saw that movie.
Oh, yeah.
I saw that movie when I was a kid. I turned the light on and slept with a crucifix because I was so...
Yes, I watched all the Hammer movies. I loved them. Me and Dale love them.
Did you? Well, for those that may or may not know, Hammer Horror, you guys, is an institution. It was like a British institution, slightly creaky productions, but they were brilliant. So I would be Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing and stuff like that.
Yes, was Van Helsing.
Yeah, it was Van Helsing. My mother had Bram Stoker's Dracula, and on the front cover was a picture of Christopher Lee with the fangs, and it was terrifying. But I loved reading that book as well. But I would rummage past that, and I would start reading the Greek mythology, and in there was one of the stories of this king. I can't remember, maybe King Menelaus or something like that. But it was a king who'd done something very, very bad. And part of his punishment was to be tortured by the Furies. Now, the Furies, well, they were called the Erinyes, I think, but they're known as the Furies. And essentially, they're these kind of demigoddesses, but ones are sort of like mental torture. So they would literally torment people's minds.
Oh, yeah.
That's what they would do. And when I read that story, that was one of the first references I had for beginning to understand my mother's mental health issues. And then I realized it wasn't my fault. She wasn't angry because of me. Something was afflicting her. And then that just took me on a huge journey in the astrology and all that stuff. So it all started when I was 8, and the rest is history, as they say. So I hope that was a concise enough answer.
You even answered a question ahead.
I'm all about mental illness. And it's sad that in this country, we don't appropriate enough money or understanding to it. I was a social worker. And when I was in college, we started day programs where people could come that were mentally ill. That's how I became a Kentucky colonel. Wow. The highest honor the state can give you. But anyway, enough about me. But it sounds to me like, I can't diagnose, but maybe your mom was more schizoaffective. That's what it sounds like. Paranoia goes with that as a combination of schizophrenia and bipolar all rolled into one.
Yeah, I think that sounds about right. It was very complex, and it was very multi-layered, and she was very unpredictable as well. I mean, of course, when you look like me and as an astrologer, when I look at my chart, I can see the manifestations of these things. But when you're a kid, you don't know about these stuff. But she was highly intelligent as well, and I think there was a lot in her life that was also to do with like frustration as well, particularly if you can think of in terms of like women's rights, how those things have developed. But imagine if you're a young Black Caribbean woman who's very gifted, very bright, with very few opportunities, and then these mental health struggles and everything. So it was very complex.
Hogarth, I've never told this story. I'll probably cry. When I was in 2nd grade, my mother had in those days what they called a nervous breakdown. Wow. She had depression, and this was in the late 60s. I was born in 54. I grew up in the late 60s and early 70s. And I remember she had to go to a mental hospital.
Mm.
And in those days, they would give electroconvulsive therapy, shock treatment.
Yes.
And I remember going there with my mom as an outpatient once she got out. And she knew everybody, but when she would come out, she didn't know anybody. And I remember her looking at me saying, "Who are you?" And I cried. Because, this is my mom. And I remember I found my little place sitting behind the couch right by the heat, where the heat would come out from the furnace. And I would sit there and I would cry. I wouldn't let anybody see me. And I would cry because I wanted my mother back, but also because I was afraid she would die. And I knew that if she would die, I would be raised by my father. And that would not have been pretty. And I remember the earliest experiences were my mother having mental illness and trying to work through that in my mind and trying to kind of stay sane myself with all of it. And my father's aunt took care of us when my mom was hospitalized. And it was a very frightening time. So I can almost relate to what you went through to a degree. I've never told that story.
Yeah,
So
they should have more.
I'm sorry?
Wow.
Yeah, they should have more regarding mental illness. I know my sister-in-law was paranoid schizophrenic, and she couldn't watch TV because she thought the people in the TV were going to kill her, were watching her, were, sleeping with a knife under her bed, taking off with the kids and nobody knowing where she went. My daughter wanted to spend the night with her and we wouldn't let her because we didn't know if she might just take off with her. But it wasn't her fault. She needed help, and there just isn't help out there for people that need it, and a lot of them end up homeless. So the fact that you found an outlet in Greek mythology and astrology and another world in books, it seemed like it was an escape for you to be somewhere else, and you were learning at the same time.
Mine was also reading. I was always a bookworm when I was a kid. I was always reading about, I read Bram Stoker when I was a kid, but I would read everything I could get my hands on. I remember my father bought a set of World Book encyclopedias. Now they're obsolete. This was back in 1963. And I read them from A to Z, every single one of them, because I was just, I get it. It was my own escape out of the reality of the fear of what if my mother dies? What if she doesn't come back? What if? And, here was this woman who seemed perfectly healthy and went from that to sometimes not knowing who we were or calling from the hospital saying, put the roast in the oven and put it on 300. And was like, wow. That brought back a lot of memories, and thank you for sharing that. And I've never, like I said, shared this publicly before.
Thank you for sharing that. That was very brave and very honored and touched that you shared that. And I wasn't expecting either of you to have your own stories, and it goes to show, doesn't it, like all these taboos and all of these things, and this is really what a lot of the book is about as well. I mean, we can't blame it all on the planets. We do have free will and stuff, but I've read a lot of charts now, and I can just see certain stuff. There's the soul contract, as it were, is so complicated and it's so subtle, and there's so many factors, so many things that come in, and so many lessons that we need to learn. And many of my clients are psychic as well, like Mel, and they give me information as well. My mother often comes through, and she's managed to reconcile with her mother, because that really was what one of the main woundings was there. And I thought one of the sweetest things, and she says, I'm being the mother to you now that I couldn't be while I was alive. Isn't that beautiful?
Beautiful.
Yes. And she's well now, and she's got her wits all about her, and now you got somebody watching over you, like Mel said. So proud of you. I
think the birds that she showed me means that she's at peace. Very, very at peace.
Yes. And I have lots of birds in the park as well. I'm always feeding them. I adore birds, so I'm not showing you that.
Good work.
And she was an animal person too. You said you had lots of animals growing up, and birds too.
Always dogs and guinea pigs. And...
Yep.
I'm sorry if I'm.
Now
I
you
don't.
realize.
I don't mean to jump in. It's
Oh
just
no,
that we have all these memories.
I want us to be able to jump in and you to jump in, Mel, anytime that you have something to say on this too. Hogarth, you realize that all the Greek gods that had names given to planets, and you started using astrology to study your mom and your siblings and your friends, and you realized mythology was more than just a myth. It was psychology, and that planets had influence over our lives. So my question was, were you surprised how accurate the planets were when you were reading for friends and family? And what did they think? And how did you learn to put a chart together for each of them at the young age that you were learning this stuff? So if you can remember, the first question is, what did they think? And how did you learn to do that? Your friends and family, when you started reading their astrology and being right.
Oh, I mean that's a really good question. So I mean it evolved. So I wasn't doing consultations and stuff like that when I was a kid, but it would be I would, because I'm still a geek now, really proper geek. But I remember I would be talking with my friends, family about the planets, about astrology, about mythology, and because I started off in Western astrology first. So let's just make that clear. I started off in Western astrology first. That's where I learned it. Everyone that here has probably read Linda Goodman's Sun Signs, which is a very famous foundational astrology book in Western astrology. So I learned with all of that stuff. And I think what it was initially, it was particularly like those outer planets, because they're very psychological, particularly Pluto has a lot to do with the intense dark side of psychology as well, particularly the story of Hades, Persephone. Well, Hades and Pluto are the same. Persephone and Demeter, for example. This is an analogy I use a lot in the chart, which is symbolized by Ceres, when you look at Ceres. Because I'm a Neo-Vedic astrologer, so I include the outer planets, Chiron and Ceres as well. And so things evolved with time, Deann, because I'd put in so much work, as it were, on the psychology first. So you could say there was the astrology and the astronomy in terms of like the physics of the planets. Then I really got into the psychology. So I read, Freud, Jung, the hero's journey, etc., all of these ones, Iron John, all of these different kind of things. And then I realized how the meanings of the planets were these archetypes for psychology, and psychology reflected the archetypes of the planets. So I began to weave it all together. And then I overlaid the theory on practical life experience as well, and what actually shows up in people's lives. And that's why I think the astrology has become so effective. Many of my clients often weep or cry when they have consultations with me. We also laugh a lot as well, because I start reading their life. I just look at the sun and I can see what's going on with the father. I look at the moon, see what's going on with the mother. Mars is your brothers or your siblings in particular. Venus is your sisters. Jupiter is the husband. Imagine how often I read on things to do with Jupiter. You wouldn't believe.
Wow. Well, that brings me to, you said that when you were in school that you used astrology against any bullies in school and they left you alone. So how did you use astrology against your bullies?
Well, not quite astrology. I would say what it was, because my mother was such a fierce character. I mean, she was a tigress, my mother. She really was. And in a way, to kind of second like what you were saying, Mel, about with your mother. So when someone's got mental health issues, you don't want them to do so with my mother, when she was in a real state, she was too much to handle. Yeah. However,
she had agitated psychosis. She would be, that's like,
absolutely.
Schizoaffectives can do that. They get very agitated, and you can't talk them down once they're in that full-fledged psychotic episode.
Absolutely. Right. So I often had to deal with that. So for me, I had to learn a lot of skills, a lot of coping mechanisms as a kid. And what was I going to say? So because I have this volatile, unpredictable parent. Now, she could also be brilliant as well. And this is why I've got such a edge to my humor. She could be utterly brilliant, but I'm talking about, like, my mom used to go and knock on the neighbor's door. Imagine this. She's looking like this wild creature, and she would go to the neighbors, knock on the door. They would come to the door. They would open the door, and then she would insult them in full Jamaican patois.
Oh, patois.
Yeah, and she was the best.
Did she call him bamboo clot or rosclot?
That and more. See, he knows that and more because
he does.
Now, Mel will know this. Mel will know this because he obviously has a bit of experience with Caribbean people, but Jamaicans in particular have the sharpest tongues.
Oh, yeah.
So imagine my mother would have been Olympic gold medalist in cussing people, yeah, in Jamaican patois. She would be so good that the person would just end up laughing. There was one day, I mean, I can't even repeat the things that my mother would say. So I had this very extraordinary, unpredictable character, and I had to grow up mentally very quickly. So you can imagine primary school kids or secondary school kids didn't stand a chance. I could see what their neuroses were or whatever it was, and I would just be like that. And that was it. It was over. Never had to lift a finger.
So you could verbally take them down. You didn't have to fight with your fists. You could take them down verbally with psychology.
Absolutely.
Well, what I'm seeing so many parallels. And this is, I mean, I can't even talk, which is kind of a shocker for me. When I was growing up in the South in the late 60s, early 70s, specifically in high school, I knew that I was gay, but I didn't think anybody else was. And I wasn't into sports, and we had to do physical education. We had to play football, and I hated it. I dreaded it. And I would go to school, and I would get beat up, and I was called sissy, faggot, queer. And I hated going to school because of that. But my mother, after she recovered, she was the cook in a little kitchen in a bowling alley. Years ago, they had restaurants and bowling alleys. And she had some cousins in Chicago, and she would always bring me to Chicago with her. And they would go see a woman who wrote tarot cards. And I would love that. I was just so fascinated. And I knew that I had my ability from the time I was 6. And I remember in high school going through that bowling, and my first deck of cards was the Gypsy Witch cards. And I learned to read those. And there was a woman in the bowling alley where my mother worked that was very psychic. And she pulled me aside and she goes, "You have this gift. And it's going to come to you in 7. Could be 7 months, could be 7 years, but you have it already." And she started teaching me how to read cards. And I was, I think, 12, but it was 7 years later, when I was 19, 19, I started doing my readings. But back to your point is that during high school, learning the Gypsy cards and reading, that was my escape. And that got me through the bullying, and I would pull the cards to just see what they would show for some of these people. And they were really accurate. So it wasn't about getting even. It was just about, a place to go to spiritually. And that made me strong. I used to pray, why did it happen to me? And I wouldn't want to go through it again, but it made me strong. So when you're talking about bullying and getting into the intuitive realms and trying to explain it in our world that we were living in, it worked for both of us, it seems like,
Yeah. It was very good training. It was very good training. And because you got no choice. Like, as you guys understand, when the main caregiver, which I see a lot as well with my clients as well, and there's even parts of the sky that can indicate these things. For example, certain nakshatras, asterisms, which I explain in the book with the illustrations and all of that kind of stuff, which can show the potential challenges, but also as well the rewards and the gifts of certain things. But it was very good training in the sense of I feel like a lot of my challenges in life were front loaded, and in a funny way, as I've matured, it's got easier because there's already been so much work done. But one thing I think what's great about, obviously, with consultations and stuff like that, is that when you're helping others, you're also helping yourself, and you also see, you get this perspective, and you see what happens to other people in their lives. And trust me, I've heard it all.
Oh, wait, I've been doing this over 50 years.
Well, oh my God, even more. You've heard it all,
Wow.
and all again.
You know, I just turned 70, so I've been doing this a long time.
God, you don't have 70 at all. My goodness.
Talking, I'll bring you home with me.
No, you don't.
You know, sometimes
so the tarot cards, Mel, kind of give you go ahead. I just was saying the tarot cards kind of helped you be able to understand people better, understand maybe why they were the way they were.
I didn't do tarot. I did the Gypsy Witch cards.
Those are different. Okay.
Right. And also, you know, when I'm reading for my clients, I sometimes think, and I tell them, when I'm talking to you, I'm talking to me. So what I do is I take the social work pieces, the psychic pieces, and you put them together, like the astrology, to help somebody form a strategic map for their life. And I sometimes think, yeah, I am talking to myself, but I'm nurturing that inner child within. And I think for them and for me. So Deann, I learned to read the cards, but I could also, you know, I learned I didn't need the cards. I could do it without them.
I see. Okay.
But anything that I could read about that pertained to psychic ability, intuition, astrology, anything I could get my hands on, I read. And when I went to college, I studied psychology, and I had my master's in psych. And I went into it because I was trying to find out answers for ESP, or psychic ability. Didn't explain them much. So Hogarth, when you were talking about reading Freud and Jung, when I was in school in the 70s in college, most psychology was based on Freud. So we had to study Freud, Jung, and I found it fascinating. I'm not Freudian. I'm more behavioral, but it's still, it kind of, I think it helped, at least it helped me. I'm sure it helped you on our journey.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And the Greek mythology and stuff like that, because honestly, Deann, I mean, it is so extraordinary how when I actually started working at scale. So let's say, like, when I was, once my YouTube channel really started to take off and stuff like that, I then had the benefit of already having the grounding or the learning and some experience and stuff like that already, but then I could apply it on scale. And I thought the further I went on this journey, the more esoteric and the more mysterious it would become. It's gone completely the opposite, completely the opposite way. It's very literal. It's very, you just see certain things and it's just like bang, bang, bang. It's like when I'm reading a chart now, I say to my clients, it's like reading a piece of music. Everyone's chart is unique, but certain planets in certain signs and in certain combinations will sing certain tunes. And there's just stuff that you can read. Like if a person has Kimadruma moon, for example, that's when an isolated moon, that's when there's no planet with the moon. Before the moon or after the moon, roughly speaking. North node, south node, and the sun don't count as company. So whenever I see the moon on its own, the song that comes into my head is, you know, the song, the big Celine Dion cover, you know, all by myself. Yeah, that's the song the moon sings when it's Kimadruma moon. And whenever I see that, I know that my clients, particularly when growing up, they felt like the odd one out. It always means the same. It will vary from person to person, the way they feel the odd one out. But whenever I see Kimadruma moon, that's what it means, literally. And there's so many other things. So, of course, it's all in the book.
Well, yes, this book, I'm telling you, I'm going to read the rest of it, because what I liked is, when you first said you were writing this book, Hogarth, I thought, oh my gosh, when you guys talk astrology, it's like, And I thought, I'm not going to understand any of it, but I'm going to try. I'm going to try and read this. But it is so well written, and it is so, it explains things so well. And so I feel like this is a book that I can read and understand this stuff a little bit better. And so for somebody like me to say that, who has absolutely no astrology knowledge, I also wanted to ask you, Hogarth, I noticed when I read with you a few times actually, and I noticed when you do your tarot cards, you are so articulate and with them. How much do you rely on your astrology? Like when you have the sun card, or when you have certain cards, it seems like you may be putting your astrology a little into your tarot reading too, in the pictures and things like that. Do you incorporate that? It seems like you might.
Great question. Yes, what I would say is the astrology really helps, because I have to be able to interpret the texture or the vicissitudes, of a person's life and their soul contract based on a little symbol in a square box. And depending what little symbol is with another little symbol, I have to extract the meaning from that. So many ways, it's kind of like, I would say, when I'm reading, like, my analogy would be like reading a chart, an astrology chart, if you're not familiar with it, would be like using Braille. But tarot cards, in a way, for me, they're like Technicolor. Do you know what I mean? Because it's kind of painted. But I think what it does is the astrology helps give me extra insights and extra colors and stuff. And as well, I also read the cards backwards as well. Sometimes I read the cards backwards or whatever, because sometimes the planets tarot is very connected with astrology as well, and Kabbalah and all this stuff, which I'm sure you both know. So it helps, yeah.
Well, when I have clients in my office, I use psychometry, hold an object, and things are kind of recorded. But when dog just came to say hi. But I tell my students that, to use the tarot cards or to use the gypsy cards, and I got my tarot cards right here too.
I do have those. I haven't used them though.
But they're kind of hard to read. But once you get hooked into them, but I think using the cards, they're a focal point. I think to help us focus on what's coming through psychically or intuitively. And so I can go without the cards. Sometimes I do because people like them. But I think, Deann, that was an excellent question, because, as astrologers, psychics, and Hogarth, I'm sure you're very strongly psychically gifted. I know you are. But we have many tools that we can use. We've got many tools in our toolbox. It could be tarot. It could be pendulum. It could be a pen, automatic writing. It could be astrology. And I tell people, explore those tools. They're fun tools that you can use. So, and
I noticed with the tarot cards, the more I try to, when I first started doing it, the more I tried to think of it, think of the answer, the less it would come. It's almost like when I would it's like you already know, but you look at the pictures and it kind of, it confirms what you already know. The pendulum confirms what your higher self already knows. But it's just the way.
I just tell people, don't use the pendulum for yourself, because sometimes your subconscious takes
it. Because you have, if you think something, it will. You're better not knowing when you use a pendulum, because when you use a pendulum, if you sit there, if I think yes, it will swing yes. If I think no, it will swing no. You have to clear your mind completely. So the pendulum, you have to be careful.
How to get Hogarth's book? There's a lot of things that people are asking, how did they get it? They want to buy it.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Oh, thank you. Okay, so the book is called The Candid Guide to Neo-Vedic Astrology. But you can also look up Hogarth Brown. So the Kindle book is already ready, I'm told. People have told me in the comments that they've started to buy it already. The print version will be out soon, and then there'll be a hard copy out soon. So let's say in the next week or so.
Now let me put it in the chat. Just say the name slowly. The Candid.
Yeah, so the Candid Guide to Neo-Vedic Astrology. So NEO-VEDIC and then astrology, and then you just look up Hogarth or Hogarth Brown, and it's there. So dive in and let rip, and if anyone wants to leave me a review as well, that would be great. But it's very accessible. It really is. And it takes you on the cycles of human consciousness, the outer planets, how the outer planets affect politics as well. Because I'm sure there's some politics questions and stuff like that. So, it's all in there, folks. It's all in there. 36 years of experience put on a page.
Well, there was something I read in there that said that a little bit of the difference you said between Vedic astrology. So I explain a little of the difference between Western astrology and Vedic astrology. You described tropical, the Western astrology as being classical music, and Vedic was more like jazz music. What did you mean by that?
Oh, good. You're good. Oh, my God, good questions. What did I mean by that?
I wrote them. No, I didn't. Well, hold on. Before you answer, they're asking if they can get it on Amazon.
Yes. Sorry, Amazon. Yes. So it's on Amazon. So if you've got Kindle, you can get on Amazon Kindle, and then let's say in the next week. I mean, the designers just had a little hit. It's still kind of Mercury retrograde after all. We're standing still now. But yes, on Amazon, and then there'll be the paperback, and then there'll be the hard copy as well. So I would say in the next few days for the print, and then the hard copy maybe next week, something like that. But it is there, so go for it. Get stuck in now, then you can always get the print copy.
I'll tell you what I'm going to do. Now they can get it on Amazon, right? And it's not in hard copy as of yet. Is that correct?
Not yet. Maybe next week.
Okay. When I get to 24,000 subscribers, I am going to give away 3 copies of Hogarth's book to my members. If Hogarth, if there's some way you can get me an autographed copy, I will bring it to our event in September, and we'll have a drawing to see who would get a copy of the book.
Okay, I'll do my best. You'll have to give me after the show, give me like your post details and stuff like that, and then when the physical copies are out, then I'll get some, and then I'll sign, and then I'll get them posted to you. Mind you, your postage and packing these days is absolute hell, but I'll do it for you, Mel. I'll do it for you.
I'll send you the money.
It's crazy. It cost me $23 to mail this little bottle to England. You got yours.
Look what I've got.
Okay.
Yeah.
So once again,
look at mine. I got all.
People are asking the name of the book. The name of the book is The Candid Guide to Neo-Vedic, VEDIC Astrology by Hogarth Brown. That squeaking you're hearing is my dog playing with her toy. She wants me to play.
Oh, I love the pet. And by the way, animals love astrology. Very often with my clients, the pets will actually come in and listen. As soon as the consultation begins, cats adore it. I've got a client of mine. She won't move, but she's called Callista. She's wonderful woman. She has birds. She's got little parakeets. And when our consultations start, the parakeets come and land on her head and arms and shoulders. They come and listen. They literally come and listen to the consultation. It's amazing. Dogs,
I hear cats are very spiritual.
Dogs and cats are mediums too. They're batteries. They pull in really positive force. Oh, by the way, people are ordering this book already. Michael Parrott just downloaded a sample on Kindle, so you can get it on Kindle.
Oh, good.
Download the book, and I'm sorry for jumping in. I'm looking at the comments, and I just want to thank everybody out there.
Thank you. Oh, thank you guys. And much appreciated. There'll be more details on my show tomorrow, my Thursday, Friday. That was when I was planning to but we're kind of already getting it. People are finding it. So much appreciation, folks. I really do appreciate it. You'll love it. You'll love it.
I can't wait to get to read the rest of it. And there's a thing. Now, I'm going to mutilate this name, Hogarth. I just want to let you know, you're going to have to correct me. I'm going to mutilate it. It said you quoted Hermes Trismegistus, as above, so
Hermes
below.
Trismegistus, yes.
Thank you.
Yep,
As
sorry, go
above,
say again.
so below, as within, so without, as to the universe, so to the soul. So my question is, what does that quote mean to you, since you quoted it in your book?
Thank you. Great question again. So Hermes Trismegistus, who's that? So Hermes Trismegistus is really one of the epic characters of history, of esoteric history, as it were. We forgot about him because we go through these cycles of the yugas of increasing consciousness and then decreasing consciousness. So the peak of human consciousness was around about 11 to 12,000 years ago, Atlantis, basically. Yeah, we've all heard of that place.
Yeah.
And then we steadily went down. And we're just coming out of what was the lowest point in human history, which is Kali Yuga, which is known as the Iron Age. So you have the Iron Age down here, and then either this side you have the Bronze Age, which is called Dwapara Yuga, which we've just gone into, but we're now going the Ascending. Then you have something called Traitor Yuga, which is the Silver Age. And then Satya Yuga is the Golden Age, when human consciousness is at its highest range of development. So Hermes Trismegistus has been known from the Egyptian times and before. He's also known as Thoth. Yeah, so Hermes, Thoth, Hermes Trismegistus, they're sort of the same similar characters. And what it is about is one of these hermetic truths, which is talking about, and you guys probably know this already, especially watching, which is that we as human beings are in a way like fractals of the eternal universe and vice versa. So with the as above, so below, which is how most people know it is, which is saying that the planetary energies above do reflect themselves on planet Earth. And I say each person is kind of like an antenna, but each planet is kind of like, it's like a crystal. Yeah, it's like a crystal. And the stars give their energy, which is called Shakti. We call it starlight, but the ancients called it Shakti. And it's like the planet will refract the light of the star asterism that they're in, because we break up the star signs into extra parts, 2 1/4 parts. And the nature of that planet is then influenced by the light coming from that nakshatra. And then that actually filters through. And I think it really affects our auric field, particularly when we take our first breath. And that's why when I read my charts from the Neo-Vedic perspective, that's why they're so accurate for people, because planets really are people. They really are. Like Mars is your siblings, but he's your brother in particular. But if you don't have a brother, he will definitely be your sister. Venus will be your sister, or your daughters, or is the wife, or she's the wife. Yeah, Jupiter is the husband, all these things.
Deann, somebody
Yeah, because
said
you
that
mentioned that with.
I'm sorry, somebody
I
said
have a
that you
what?
have a beautiful, somebody said that you have a beautiful interview style.
Oh, thank
when
you.
doing-
Thank you so much.
Other people are saying, Hogarth, your voice is soothing. And other people tell me they can hear me typing because I'm trying to keep up with the chat and answer people.
Yes, thank you, Mel. Mel is really helping me here because you guys, I am a horrible, I have a little bitty space and I'll knock all my cards off if I try to type. So no, I'm watching all your comments and I appreciate you guys. And you mentioned too with Vedic astrology, some people who are an Aries sign in Western astrology, they're more likely to be a Pisces. And many who are thinking they're Scorpios are actually Libras, and Capricorns are actually Sagittarius. So how does knowing that, let's see, this affect a person's chart? For example, would it be like a Scorpio who doesn't fit in the Western description of Scorpio because they're closer to being a Libra?
So what if you're,
you know what I mean? You said that we're not always what we think we are.
What if we're 1 degree Aries in the Western system? Like I'm March 22nd. Would that put me Pisces? You have to look at the chart. That's a good question.
You are absolutely Pisces, and you couldn't be more Pisces if you tried, Mel, honestly.
That's why I love Mel. I love Pisces. My mother was a Pisces.
I'll let you into a little secret, yeah? the vast majority of us here, us YouTubers who are here doing these shows and stuff like that, the vast majority of us will have either our ascendants or planets in the water signs. Because in Vedic astrology,
Scorpio.
the water signs are known as Brahmin. Yeah, they're Brahmin signs. The water signs are the most sensitive and the most psychic. So the way it works is, so Mel, yes, technically in Western tropical, you would be an Aries, but only just. But there's a phenomena which is called the precession of the equinoxes. And this is real physics, guys. And I explain all of this in the book. Yeah. It's all, I've done the illustrations, everything. It's all there. You're really gonna get it. Basically, long story short, the stars are moving backwards by 1 degree every 72 years or so.
Wow.
Western tropical astrology doesn't take that movement into account. Now, the last time that the two overlapped, which I also put in the book, was around about the fall of Rome. The fall of Rome could be said to be around about 420 odd years. AD,
I think you said.
Yeah, I can't remember. My mind just went blank there.
I think it was AD. Yeah.
I think it was AD. I think it was. Anyways, it's in there. But you can imagine the stars have moved a lot in that time. So what is that energy, that Shakti, that starlight is actually coming from a different constellation, because everything's moved backwards. So say like with Mel, his sun sign might be Aries, but when you take off the 24 degrees movement backwards where the stars have actually gone, it puts Mel slap bang in Pisces. Now, why do I say that? Pisces are referred to as empath's corner. The vast majority of the people watching, so many of my clients all have placements in Pisces. Why? Because Pisces is one of the most psychic signs. I'm Cancer ascendant. Cancer is psychic, of course. And of course, we all know the Scorpios are psychic as well. The internet is littered with us, but because we grow up in the Western tropical, that's what we know. But then when I understood certain things, I was like, oh my goodness. But you need to look at the ascendant, the sun sign, and the moon sign. I call that the Holy Trinity. But it's all in the book. If you want to learn all of that stuff, it's all there, because it would be too long to explain otherwise. And what about politics as well? I thought we were going to do some politics, but never mind.
Can I ask just one quick question?
Sure.
So what about the ephemeris? Though there was an astrologer, she was excellent. She was a horary astrologer. And for those of you who don't know what that means they cast a chart based on a question you're asking. And she had the ephemeris, and she could cast a chart like that. She was incredible. But, you know, you have to have the ephemeris for that and do all the calculations in her head. She was a genius. So the ephemeris, how would that, because you need I think the algorithms do it now, but how would that affect, like if I've got a bunch of old ephemeris or the plural of that, ephemerae, I don't know the plural, but how does that play into Vedic astrology? Do you have to take into account?
Great question. I would say with the ephemeris, because with the ephemeris, if I remember correctly, you have to plot the stars where they actually are. Yeah.
Or where they're going.
Yeah, or exactly, or where they were. So really, with your friend that was using the ephemeris, she will be using the same reference points as Vedic astrology. So basically, siderial just basically means to follow the stars. In Western tropical, we follow the seasons, we follow the path of the sun. But the sun ever so slightly moves backwards as well, one degree every whatever or so years. That's why, for example, when I do charts with clients and they've got the same birthday as me, because I'm born 12th of October, but say they're born in 1960, whatever, like a lot of them are, even though we're both 12th of October, the degree of the sun will not be exactly the same. The degree of their sun will be a little bit in a slightly different place to mine, even though it's the same day, because the sun is moving backwards, you see, slowly but surely. So anyone who's using an ephemeris and they're looking right at the stars where they are, then it's actually sidereal. And sidereal astrology is very, very accurate because it actually talks about Shakti, the star light. And light contains information, and that's why it's so accurate. And your friend, if she was just doing that off an ephemeris, then yes, I think she probably was the genius, because I use software. We have software now that does it.
I remember years ago, before computers, well, they had computers, but they weren't like now. And you'd have the ephemeris, and you'd have to convert it to sidereal mean time, and then you'd have to take the time that, like, you were born, convert it to or the time you're asking the question, convert it to sidereal mean time, and then to Greenwich Mean Time. And it was this whole process, and it was like, whoa. And then you had to have it the right place on the chart, and then to learn to delineate the chart. So in the old days, I mean, it was like having a PhD plus.
Yeah.
Well, I tell you, Mel, you are so smart. You are so educated. I tell you, this man here, he knows. I mean, I hear you repeat the accents. You know languages. You've traveled, social worker, investigated ghost stories. It just amazes me, all the stuff. I feel so honored to be able to have both of you. You are just amazing to be able to learn from you guys. It's just amazing.
I'm honored to be here with you and Hogarth. You know, I think part of going back to what Hogarth said with the bullying and the growing up, you know, I was curious by nature always. And everybody would say, you ask too many questions. And I would be like, and my father would say, curiosity killed the cat. And I'd be like, why did curiosity kill the cat? You know, I always, and that's how I learned. And I still do, you know, thank God I don't have to go to the library anymore. I could just use Google. But you know, it's a hungry mind, and I think that's what helped me survive. You know, even with having cancer, it was like, okay, what am I looking at here? I did all the research I could possibly do, because knowledge is awareness.
It's power.
And power in a good way. It should be power in a good way.
Yes. And I know we were supposed to talk about politics, Hogarth, too, but I just got so interested in wanting to tell people about your book. I do want to say Aiden Reed's Tarot had a really good question here. What would happen if there was a new planet discovered in our solar system? Would anything with astrology change? That's interesting, would it?
Great question. So when planets are discovered, as it were, this is when their energy kind of impacts on the collective unconscious more strongly. So say, like, for example, in traditional Vedic astrology, because remember, I'm a Neo-Vedic astrologer, basically, it's new Vedic astrology. So they only look at 9 factors, yeah? So they look at Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn. The 7 grahas, they call them. It means to grip, yeah? And they can be seen with the naked eye. And the last that can be Saturn is the last that can be seen with the naked eye. Then they look at Rahu and Ketu, north and south node of the moons. 9 grahas, and that makes up the nakshatra rulers as well. 27 nakshatras, they get 3 each. But of course, I include the outer planets Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, and Ceres and Chiron, because they're too important to leave out, because they are the secret source to a lot of things. When a planet is discovered, what's going on at that time is associated with that planet. So although the ancient Greeks knew about Hades and stuff like that, of course, planet Pluto was discovered in 1930. That was when it was discovered by conventional science at that time. And in fact, I forget the girl's name, but I put her in the book. She actually named Pluto Pluto. And Pluto, when it was discovered, think of what was going on in the 1930s. We had fascism. We had things to do, First, Second World War, was all that energy was going on. We had a lot of dictators around the world. And this is why I've been said from the early days of my channel, it's like we're back in the times of the early 1930s. Why? Because by now, Pluto has taken a long time to move. He is now in the opposite sign into which he was having a lot of power, which was the sign of Cancer, in Western tropical. He's now in sidereal Aquarius, so what's actually, what I'm talking about, he's in sidereal Capricorn. in Western tropical, they say he's in Aquarius, but really he's in sidereal Capricorn. And America is having its first Pluto return. Pluto takes between 244 to 248 years to come back. You guys now have him back. He came back earlier this year. This is why, now what's Pluto? Pluto is what? God of the underworld. Capricorn is the sign of politics. It is the sign of business, old institutions. Pluto creates that transformation. It's like transform or die. What do we see? Issues with the health of the royal family. Very old institution. The old thingy bob house in Denmark, the old trading house over 400 years old, that just burnt down. And then look at all of the ramifications and all the shenanigans we're seeing in politics. Too long for me to explain here. But basically, if we discover a new planet, it will have the energy of now. That's why, and the name it's given will also influence its energy upon us. And it's remarkable how accurate the naming of planet often is. It's a very intuitive, collective thing that happens. So I hope that answers the question.
Hogarth, Mystic Dax says, the Vedic astrology reading I had with Hogarth described me better than the Western charts I had my whole life. So
yeah, you said that a lot of times it describes people in a way that the other didn't. And since we are talking, I know we're at the end, but I wanted to know, since we were talking about politics, with the eclipse, this has made me, I don't know about you all, tired and lethargic, and everybody I know has been feeling that way. And I just wondered, how is this eclipse? And they're saying we're going into the age of Aquarius versus the age of Pisces. How is the eclipse affecting Trump, us politically? And what does it mean for those of us living on the planet now and in the future, this age of Aquarius, for those of us that don't understand what that means?
Right. Well, it is, first of all, it is epic. And you've probably heard me and so many other astrologers and even the tarot readers as well getting stuck in on that big solar eclipse that crossed America on April 8th. Now, this won't happen again in America until 2044. So you guys have got a little bit of a rest in that way. But essentially, the last eclipse that happened before this one happened in October 2023. And it went from one side of America to the other. Yeah, this eclipse went from, again, the other side of America to the other, and crossed in Texas. Yeah. Now, before this eclipse even happened, I said, look, there's going to be issues with the border. There's going to be this, that, and the other stuff going on. And there's all this extraordinary things with these 5 red cows that Texas delivered to Israel once upon a time in 2022. And they may be used in some big sacrificial whatnot, which is, it almost seems too impossible to believe, but really is a thing. So what does this talk about? This is coinciding, of course, with the Pluto return. It means America is quite literally at a crossroads. Quite literally at a crossroads. The fate of America is being decided now. And what happens is, in mundane astrology, which is like the astrology of everyday life, you look at the leaders' charts, yeah? You look at whoever is the leader of the country, their chart will also impact their nation. Now, as we know, Duck L'Orange, yeah, aka Trump, as you know, I call him Duck L'Orange, crispy Duck L'Orange, I call him now. Yes. What's happening with him is very, very interesting because of the dasher sequence that he's going through. And I said back in November 2021, back in November 2021, I said, guys, the accountability is not really going to start coming for him until October 2023. Yeah, a lot of people were very upset when I said that. Yeah. Very upset. But look what's happened since, because of this energy of the dashers. Again, that's all in the book. One thing I will say, when Duck L'Orange goes into his Jupiter-Venus dasher, which starts in September, he's actually in quite a lot of danger. I mean it. Like, he could have a major health incident, or he may have to flee, exile, be imprisoned, whatever. It's all brewing. It's all on the cards. But I mean, And I don't want to, you know, I mean, obviously some people be like, oh, what the hell, you know, it's Dr. Orange. At the end of the day, we're not wishing bad on people, but I'm just saying he's going into
I'm
a
getting,
very vulnerable time in
yeah.
his life. Very vulnerable.
Yeah, I've been feeling like in June something big was going to come in September he's going to have a major issue health wise. Does that line up with what the astrology says too?
Yeah, that would line up. Yeah, with his Jupiter, Venus, too long to explain, but it's like your soul is in the backseat of a certain car. I explain it in the diagrams, but what it is, he's in the backseat of the car of Jupiter, but Venus will be driving in September. At the moment, it's K2, yeah? Snip, snip. I call K2 snip, snip. And I said, K2 will take a chainsaw to Donald Trump's finances in October 2023. From onwards, look what we've seen. Venus will start driving the car in September. I think it's mid-September, but the energy will start in September. Now, Venus sits in his 12th house. The 12th house are referred to as the land of far, far away. It can also deal with exile. It also deals with hospitals and prisons. His Venus is also there with Saturn, who is the planet of karma, the taskmaster, and a very tough planet for Leo ascendants. And it's also there with Pluto, who is god of the underworld. All of that energy will begin to activate at the same time. Venus as well, also, I think, but Venus rules the 3rd house. Oh my God, I think it's the 10th. But where he's got the transits going, he's got them going through difficult houses. So we'll have to see. But even Dr. Orange is going to cave into a bit of the pressure that's going on. But it's also karma.
Yeah, yeah. And yeah, I feel like and there's so much going on. You're seeing his karma now. I did have a question, you guys. What do you feel? And then we'll stop. But what did you guys feel about the judge, Judge Merchan's decision after, you know, he about Trump 10 times he has broke his gag order, and he has said things that are, you know, put the jurors at risk, that were against witnesses. He has had other people at Fox News, Jesse Waters, talking for him. One jury left because of it. Do you feel that Trump is eventually going to be jailed for breaking this gag order again?
I'm going to pull some cards.
Would you like me to answer? First of all, let me apologize, because somebody in the comments has said about 3 times the same person that I should stop interrupting you, Deann.
I didn't think you were interrupting me.
And if I did that, I apologize.
No, we have a lag sometimes.
I just have ADD and I jump in, and I've already apologized in the comment, made this statement again. So, you know, now I'm just listening, as it were.
Oh, Mel, no, because I'll tell you what, I have ADD too. And I also have short-term memory loss from medication and things that I have in the fibro. So sometimes when I have a thought, I have to say it or I lose it and I'll never get it back again. So I sometimes have done the same, or I think somebody's done talking and they're not done talking, or we have a lag. But we all love each other, you guys, and this we would, you know, so don't think that anybody is slighted by anybody else. I have done the same thing to Mel. I've done, you know, to Lynn, because you just, like I said, there's a lag. You get a thought, you want to say it before you lose it. I don't know if you're like me, Mel. If I don't say it when I think about it, it's like it can be gone, you know, and then you can't get it back.
You know, somebody said, I have good intentions, but I need to practice patience. Okay. We've already talked about this earlier on in the show, and this is not about me. I have ADD. And sometimes, you know, on my report cards, it would be needs to stop talking and needs to start paying attention. So I'm working on patience. But here again, there you have it. So I do apologize.
Yeah. No, there's no need to apologize. I am so happy you're here, and I love you, and you are a mentor to me, and I look up to you, and I look up to you, Hogarth. I've been watching you guys for 2 years. I feel so honored to get to know you, and I am so excited that I get to talk to you about this book. And Mel, you are like one of the best psychic readers on YouTube, and I love watching you too. So these people are honoring me by being here with me, I feel. And I just want to say that I know that I had 14 or 15 questions on politics, and I had 29 on your book that I wrote. So I did not even get through them all. So would it be possible that we could do, you, me, and Mel, if you're interested, possibly doing another show on just politics? Since I wanted to do, and we'll do a little bit, because I that way we'll get a little bit of that into. And Mel, thank you, because I knew that Hogarth was so kind to give me that hour to talk about my new little business, and I wanted to let him talk about his book, because we all support each other here. And you know, just like Linda's book was awesome. We support each other in our endeavors. Yeah, I probably need that. Good thing you can't smell me through that.
It's really good. I think it works, you know, guys. Honestly, you know, it works. And Mel, I just want to say as well, it's been a pleasure collaborating with you. And I loved your insights and your contributions. And thanks for sharing, because you opened up as well. And isn't it interesting, guys, when you're watching, like, there's an energy that happens when you're live on a show. One may have an idea of where you think it may go, isn't it? And then there's what actually happens on the show, isn't it? It's like alchemy. It's like alchemy. It's remarkable.
Yes. I had it all written down, and I had how I was going to ask things, but as things go on and you say something else, it led me to something else. And so I never know how. My husband goes, "You don't know anything about astrology, Deann. What are you going to talk about?" I'm like, I'll figure it out, you know. So you just see how things go, and it was very, very interesting. And really, if you have not got his book, you really should. And I want to say to everybody that I've got a new website just for you guys to know about my for my oils. And it is called manifestshop.net. And when you see it on, you can Google manifestshop.net, and it'll say Manifest Shop USA. I did that so everybody knows. I got a lot of calls from France and Scotland and England and where else did I get? Just all over, different Switzerland, wanting my oils, and which is wonderful. And I've sold to every state except Alaska. I don't know what's going on with Alaska. I need to have a sale for Alaska. But so the new site is in the description page, and Hogarth's site and his website is in the description page, and Mel's is in there too. And so if you want to check out the website, it's under construction. You know what? I was telling Mel Hogarth, a year and a half ago, did not know how to turn a computer on or off. I left my computer on 2 months till my son-in-law taught me how to turn it off. I couldn't find the button. And now I just made my own website. It took me a whole 24 hours I was up, but I did it. And so it's under construction. I got to get a few more pictures, but the descriptions are there. You can order there. So just wanted to let you know that had changed. Manifestshop.net. And Mel, you want to tell them a little bit remind them about the convention before we go too?
Yeah, but before we go, you asked a really good question, and I kind of got off the topic of it. If you don't mind, before we go, about Mershan's decision, and I saw Hogarth shuffling.
Yes,
I love the shuffle, so I'm going to let Hogarth go with it, because I already know what decision that. But go ahead. I just want to hear what you guys have to say.
All right. So the question was, will the judge basically put Dr. Orange behind bars? Yeah. And, I'll read the cards, but also as well, there is a part of Dr. Orange that wants to be the victim as well. Let's not forget that he wants to be kind of looked up and have the spectacle and all of this stuff, because he's a showman at the end of the day. So in terms of if we look here, what's the context? We see here that there is a tremendous amount of emotion connected with this. This isn't just the judge and the environment. This, I think, is also talking about a lot of what is going on within Trump. Now, normally, of course, the Ace of Cups is seen as a positive card, which kind of emotions overflowing. But really, when we're talking about politics and we're talking about these rather scandalous characters of, like Trump, this is showing that he's got quite a lot of emotional turmoil going on. We look here, we get the Six of Cups. There is a part of Dr. Ranj, which I've said for ages, that wishes he never got into this whole presidential debacle. If he just left himself, if he stayed in his lane, stayed as a reality TV star, he could have carried on with his debauchery and all of his silliness, and he wouldn't be facing hard years in jail. So look, this is the card of nostalgia, but we can see it in the obstacle position, which can also talk about emotional petulance and immaturity as well. So in the context of having it with this card, it's almost like he's regressing back to childhood or looking fondly back on the times when he wasn't president, and of course he isn't now. We look in the middle here. We've got the Five of Cups. So we see, look, disappointment, a sense of betrayal, feeling flat. I'm feeling like generally when I tune in with his energy, it's like the air slowly going out of the tires. Yeah. As much energy as Dr. Ranj has, but when people stand up in the court of law and testify in explicit detail to your douchebaggery, yeah, and you've got nowhere to run, and you know it's all true. Do you know what I mean? No wonder he's breaking wind in court and falling asleep and all this stuff. So here he is here, like being terrible. Yeah. And if you look at it, look, he wants to run away. Dr. Ranj, on a certain level, he wants to run away. He really, like, in September, like I said, if he's got the money, and if I were his, let's just say if I were his lawyers, now look, we all know we want Dr. Ranj to face justice. But if I were his lawyer, I'd be like, get out. There's no point. Leave.
Yes.
It's only going to go one way. He is nailed to the crucifix now, pretty much. And it's going to be, it's going to, you know, how he's going to come out of this innocent, I really struggle to see. So look at this, Two of Swords. He's got big decisions to make. He knows the writings on the wall, but at the same time, because he's a malignant narcissist and he so adores the hoopla and attention that he gets in America, yeah, like because the whole media landscape is now based around, you know, his outrage, you know, can he really be a man that can sit in quiet exile? Really? I think he would rather kind of go up in flames, do you know what I mean? Almost kind of kamikaze style. Throw me in jail. Now we say, now I'm like Nelson Mandela. I mean, he knew who he was. I mean, that's quite extraordinary.
I'm like, what? That's how to listen to my bullshit meter when he said he's like Nelson Mandela. I'm like, what? What?
What'd you get, Mel? That cracked me up too. I'm like, oh my gosh. Somebody said he was kind of like Jesus, and he's like, yeah, I am. He's just many people say I am, with tears in their eyes. Big, strong men.
Well, you know,
what'd you get, Mel?
I watched Glenn Kirshner. He's really good. And he, you know, he's a retired federal prosecutor, but you know, he kind of called out what he thought Mershon would do. But my take on it is, you know, Trump has been warned and he keeps doing it. So I did pull some regular cards. I got the Four of Clubs, which means it might look for a while like Trump is being successful and taking pot shots at the jury, pot shots at the judge, pot shots at the witnesses. But it also means he's going to have to face the judge.
Yes.
It also means illness, that he's got some major illness going on, or will have. The Ace of Spades. Ooh.
That's a tricky one.
It means assault. So where Trump is trying to insult and cause people to be assaulted, right? He's not going to win. He's going to have a sudden shock from bad news. That's a Six of Diamonds. Judge Mershon, in my opinion, is going to tell him, going to fine him, and Trump will open his mouth again. And I see the judge sentencing him to jail or house arrest. In fact, I I predict that the Secret Service is already figuring out ways with what to do and how to protect Trump if Trump goes to jail. It's behind closed doors. I see them talking about it. It shows he's going to have a lot of loss, a lot of money loss, a lot of loss in his life, and he's not going to win with Judge Merchan. And I know what Trump is trying to do. My guides have shown me. He's trying to get the jury to one juror or two not to be unanimous, and if he can do that, it's a mistrial.
You can get
I'm
just
sorry,
one.
hung jury, or do a mistrial. And then he's thinking because they did another trial, he's not going to win on those either. His speculation won't work. This judge is going to put up with no nonsense, and I see him sentencing Trump either behind bars or to house arrest. That's what I glean from the cards I pulled.
Well, you know, the lawyers, Trump's lawyers, came up to the judge, Merchan, and told him, oh, well, he did this because of political pressure and they said, show me. What are you talking about? Show me. And they could not show him. He asked him several times. He said, you are beginning to lose all credibility with me, which is very hard thing for a lawyer to hear. And I got, the first card I got was the Sun, but I wondered why it was there at first. But I thought, well, Trump has always been, you see the young child on the horse. He's always been, you know, got what he wants. He's been like everything goes his way. It always has. He feels like it always will. But I feel this judge, it can also mean that judge is getting clarity and knows what Trump is up to. He wants to start some fighting. He wants to start conflict. That's why he would like to get locked up like Nelson Mandela, because he wants a day in jail. He could to make so much money, you know, from his sycophants. He could make so much money, and he's hoping they'll fight for him because he said, well, I don't understand where my people, why they're not doing anything about this. He said that. So what does he want them to do about it? Attack somebody? Yes. He wants them to attack somebody. He wants them to start conflict and arguments and tension. So this is what he wants. But I see the judge not letting him manipulate him. I got the magician in reverse. He is not going to be manipulated. He has manipulated people for a long time. And the judge is like, you're not manipulating me. I see what you're doing. So there is going to be some obstacles. He's not going to be able to move forward with this. This judge, I agree with you, Mel, is going to say, okay, he had what, 10 times? A normal person, one warning, and then you're in jail. He's had 10 warnings. I believe that judge is going to say, this is it. You know, because he could just look at that as a piggy bank, $1,000, put it on my tab. I'm going to go ahead and do it some more. It's nothing to him. He thinks his people will pay for it.
It's 5,000 times, so we're up to $50,000 already.
Still for him, he's got his daughter-in-law running the RNC, isn't it? So he thinks he can just keep doing it because that's money. He's not going to pay it anyway. He's going to become president in his mind, he thinks. So that judge is not going to let him move forward with that. And he's going to be defeated. And I think that judge is going to, at the bottom of the deck, the hangman, he's going to tell him, okay, next time you are going to jail. That is it. You know, so I think we have to at this point.
I just wanted to interject one thing. When you said something, Deann, my psychic light bulb went on like ding, you know, that in a way, I intuit you're right. He wants to go to jail because then he could use that to get money from his little MAGA base, you know, the people that would send him money. But if he does that and tries to get money from it, I see the court saying, no, you cannot use that money for your own personal gain. You're going to you're not going to be able to do that. You've got to use it to maybe, I don't know, whatever, but the court will not allow him to make money from going to jail. And that hit me really strongly. So then Trump is going to bitch and moan about that. He'll try it. He will try it. But you're right, Deann, it will not work.
No. And he's already said about Cohen. He's talked about
Oh,
Cohen.
yeah.
Oh, Cohen lies. Well, who told him to lie? Who did he lie for? You know, that's intimidation of a witness.
Oh,
Yeah,
So,
he's going to be in trouble for that too.
absolutely. And one thing to add as well, just one little astrological thing. Venus is the wife, yeah, in a man's chart. Venus is the wife. So if he's going to go into his Jupiter-Venus dasher, and Venus is in the 12th house, the land of far, far away, yeah, I've always said, Melania, dust off those bags, because she's been packed for years. And that could also be something as well where there may be a separation from the wife or a divorce or something like that, because there's going to be a lot of things that are happening. But like I said, he could have something to do with health. There could even be maybe even something, potentially an attack on him in some way as well. So it's going to be very choppy for Trump. One thing I would caution though is that because Trump is a showman, never forget that, because he's actually a Leo ascendant. He's a Leo ascendant, strong Leo with Mars in the first house, conjunct the star Regulus. He turns everything into a reality show. Part of him really does want to be locked up because it feeds into his shadow theater that he loves. He understands as long as those cameras are rolling, he's got some semblance of power. I've always said, you want to get rid of Trump, you ignore him. Yeah,
they won't.
Everyone just decided to turn away. He wouldn't last a week without that attention. So I would say I can understand why the judge might be hesitant to actually lock Trump up, and he wants to take the sting out of it as much as possible, because Trump is someone that would use that and get all the aggrieved riled up and be like, look, I free Nelson Mandela, you know, and he'll find the biggest window he could with the biggest bars on it, stand there literally holding, and then he will probably put up a little flag with the email campaign, you know, and probably start selling jumpsuits for prison. You know, he's selling Bibles now. So, you know, I mean, this guy would just sell entrails. He was selling entrails. Awful if he felt it would make him money. So all I would just say is, as much as we want that justice for Dr. Orange, he is unique in the sense that he can pervert even justice to make him look like the victim. Do you see what I mean? So it's a
biggest victim in American history. There's never been a bigger victim than Donald Trump.
Part of his karma, though, is he has to sit in a courtroom and be quiet. He can't open his mouth about what people are saying about him. And you could just see the seething and Hogarth, you hit on something that's incredible, and it's true, that one of the ways to I don't want to say to get at Trump, but that one of the things that will silence Trump is just not give him the attention, not give him what he wants. And that's, he wants to bully. He feeds on that attention, whether it's positive or negative. He's like a vampire, you know? And if you take away that attention, you know, the vampire can't get his blood. That's that attention seeking, that control is the lifeblood of Donald Trump. And that's why in court it's so difficult for him. And then he walks out, he's totally unhinged, and it makes him look like a complete idiot. I see the judge ordering at some point the cameras even outside of the courthouse. It wouldn't matter, he'll just go down the block. But that was a very good point, Hogarth. That really, really, really rung true, I believe.
Jesse Waters was on Fox and he was saying, oh, poor Trump. He's such an active man. He goes golfing every day. They're making him sit there and be quiet. And he needs to be out in the sun and he needs exercise. And they're taking away his First Amendment rights and he can't stand up or leave when he wants to. And I'm like, welcome to the world of the law and everybody else. You know, everybody else.
Go ahead. Yeah, he should have thought about that. The crimes, right? I don't feel sorry for him because he can't ride around the golf course or go to his son's graduation, which he didn't go to any of his other kids' graduations.
I'm surprised he can remember the names. My goodness. You know, You know what? They should just test him. They'd be like, okay, Donald, you're facing, when we compound it all up, you're facing about 200 years in jail. But you know what? We'll knock off 10 years for each grandchild's name that you can remember. Yeah? And he'd be like,
You'd get more time added.
Yep.
Yeah.
And before I go, I do want to tell you, Hogarth, regarding your point about it being like a reality show, him treating it, even his wife, when they said, are you going to be with him on the campaign trail? What'd she say? Stay tuned. That sounds like, you know, for a when you're watching a Beverly Hills Housewives or some sort of thing like that. Stay tuned. That doesn't sound like a president.
You know, in my opinion, she's as bad as he is.
Yes, me too. Me too. She knows. When she wore that jacket that said, I don't care, do you? I lost any and all respect for her then. When the children were in those cages and she put, I don't care, but do you? I thought she's just like him. You know, she's out for the money. And I don't think, you talked about her leaving him. She may wait till he passes or gets arrested so she gets everything, you know, and she doesn't have to sleep with them or live with them. You know,
well,
but
that's probably not happened since the conception of Baron anyway. So, I mean, so I'm thinking that's probably a good, what is he, 18 now? 19? So that was probably the last, you know, whatever. But did you see the jewelry? I just have to say, you know, she's selling this necklace for $250 or something. Did you know this? It's the Mother's Day necklace. And someone sent it to me. And the headline was like, oh, Melania's ugly jewelry and stuff like that. And I just thought, oh, it can't be that bad. And I was scrolling through this article looking for this jewelry, and there was some adverts and something for like a foot scraper, or you know those things that you use in your face like this. And I said to my friend, I said, where's this? Where is the jewelry? I wanted to see a picture. And she said, no, it wasn't there. And then I scrolled back, and it was this hideous kind of three-leafed kind of clover thing, but it looked like a foot scraper or one of those things that you use, and that was her piece of jewelry. I mean, it was literally, honestly, a 4-year-old could have done better. Anyway, I'll leave it there.
Oh my gosh, I have to check on that. Well, you guys, thank you for being here. I know, I'm sorry I kept you guys over. Thank you for coming, staying a little longer so we could talk a little bit about politics. I wanted to talk about both, so it was nice. So anyway, everybody in the chat, thank you. Please go to Hogarth's channel and like and subscribe and buy his book. And please go to Mel and subscribe to his channel. He is amazing. And if you can go on the trip with us to Chicago, it's September 26th. It's going to be amazing. I'm going to make oils for all of you that attend. I'm going to make little things. We're going to talk about them. We're going to have samples for you there. And but it's going to be so much fun. Aiden Reed's Tarot is going to be there, and he's going to be taping it. Kevin's Loving Vibration is going to be there. Kevin, the Healing Medium, Kim Copeland, and especially I'm so excited I get to meet you, Mel and Linda, and we're going to have a blast, and I'm excited. So if you can sign up, please sign up, because I want to meet as many of you as I can. So it'll be fun. And thank you, Hogarth. And we'll have to do this again. And next time I'll have a whole bunch of political questions.
Let's do it.
So thank you, guys.
Let's do it soon, because this has been a real joy for me. I've really enjoyed it. Hogarth, I've wanted to meet you for a long, long time and wanted to do a collab, and I'm so glad that I got this opportunity. And I really admire your work.
And I'll give you a thanks in the book as well. By the way, I credit everyone that collabs with me. So it's going to be in the print version. You'll be in there, Mel. So thank you for inviting me.
Yeah,
it was a pleasure. Yes, you're in there as well. It was a real pleasure, guys. Much enjoyed. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you guys so much. And Friday, come to my channel. We're going to do paranormal talk, and we're going to be talking about Bigfoot, Sasquatch. Is he real? Is he not? You know, what can we find out? So come hang out with us, and we'll talk about that. So, all right. Thank you, everybody. And we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye. Hang out.